Today we're tackling something that I know a lot of you are curious about, the Mediterranean diet. But not just as like a trendy diet, like a quick fix, but we're looking at it as a whole lifestyle. And something interesting is that even in 2025, it's still considered like the gold standard by so many health experts.
Yeah, it's true. It always seems to be at the top of those best diet lists every year. But like you said, it's really more of a lifestyle. And I think the most interesting thing about it is it's not about like deprivation or strict rules.
Okay, so no crazy restrictions or cutting out entire food groups, that's a relief. But I'm still curious, like, what exactly makes this way of eating so unique?
Well, it really focuses on whole foods, like lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. You've got legumes for protein and healthy fats from things like nuts and seeds. Oh, and of course, olive oil.
Okay, yeah, that actually sounds pretty good. Like, I'm picturing all those, like, colorful salads and all the delicious meals you could make.
Right. Exactly. It's about like enjoying food and finding that balance. And it also includes things like fish, dairy, and even a little red wine.
So, what are we cutting back on? I'm guessing processed foods and added sugar are probably not big parts of this.
Yeah, got it. You want to keep those to a minimum. It's really about focusing on real whole foods. And I think that just aligns with what a lot of people are looking for nowadays, a way to eat that's enjoyable but also good for you.
Absolutely. I've always been fascinated by those blue zones, those regions where people live incredibly long lives. I've heard there's a connection to the Mediterranean diet there.
Oh, there totally is. A lot of those blue zones, like Icaria in Greece and Sardinia in Italy, their traditional diets actually have a lot in common with the Mediterranean diet. It shows you that it's not just about the food, but also the whole lifestyle.
Yeah, I can see that. So, in a world that's obsessed with all these new diets, what do you think has made the Mediterranean approach stay so relevant, even now in 2025?
Well, I'd say a big reason is the science. Decades of research, even now in 2025, have shown just how beneficial it can be for our health.
Yeah, I think there was a recent meta-analysis that came out, wasn't there, that looked at a bunch of different studies and found some pretty impressive results.
You're totally right. In that 2025 study, they found that people who followed the Mediterranean diet had a 25% lower risk of heart disease,
Hmm.
which is amazing. And on top of that, a 20% reduction in premature mortality compared to other diets.
Wow, okay. That's definitely convincing. No wonder it's still so popular. But it's not just about living longer, it's about feeling good, right?
You're exactly right. And here's another interesting thing. It's not just about physical health. The Mediterranean diet is also connected to better mental well-being.
Wow, really? Okay, so we know gut health is a hot topic these days. Does that play a role here?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that makes the Mediterranean diet so powerful. All those fruits, veggies, legumes, whole grains. It's like a superfood for your gut.
Okay, so how exactly does that work? Like, tell me more about the gut connection.
Well, think about it this way. All that fiber from those plant-based foods, it acts like a prebiotic. So it feeds the good bacteria in your gut. And when you have lots of those good bacteria, you have a diverse microbiome. And that's important for your immune system, your mood, even your overall health.
So it's like you said, it's not just about what's on your plate, it's about nourishing yourself from the inside out. And you mentioned mental well-being too. Tell me more about that.
Well, they've done studies that have shown that people who eat a Mediterranean diet tend to have lower rates of depression.
Mhm.
And there are a couple of reasons for that. The omega-3s in fish, for example, are really good for your brain. And then olive oil has all those anti-inflammatory compounds.
It's not just the health benefits, though, right? I think what's so cool about the Mediterranean diet is it's about the whole culture and the lifestyle.
You're so right. In those Mediterranean countries, food is more than just fuel. It's about family, friends, and tradition, savoring those moments together.
I love that. Like, what would a typical meal look like in a Mediterranean culture?
Okay, so picture this. You're sitting outside, maybe under some grapevines. The air smells amazing, like all these herbs and spices. And you've got a big table full of food,
Sounds lovely.
right? There are platters of colorful salads, fresh baked bread, maybe some grilled fish. And everyone's just sharing and laughing and enjoying each other's company.
I feel like food really brings people together in those cultures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just about eating, it's about the whole experience, taking your time, really enjoying the food.
It sounds almost mindful in a way, just being present and savoring the moment, which I think a lot of us could use more of these days.
Totally agree.
So, we've talked about health benefits and the culture, but what about the environmental impact? I know a lot of people are concerned about that these days.
That's a great question. And actually, one of the great things about the Mediterranean diet is that it's inherently sustainable. especially with the focus on plant-based foods.
So it's less taxing on the planet than diets that are heavy in meat or processed foods.
Exactly. Plus, because it emphasizes eating what's local and in season, you're supporting local farmers and reducing those transportation emissions.
So it's like eating in harmony with nature. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's less food waste, too. In those cultures, they've learned to use every part of the ingredient and preserve leftovers. They're very resourceful.
Okay, so it's not just what you eat, it's a whole philosophy. Living sustainably, being part of a community, and respecting the environment.
It's a really holistic approach.
Now, I know whenever people hear about a new way of eating, they always have questions. So let's talk about some common concerns people have with the Mediterranean diet, starting with olive oil. Some people think, wait, isn't that high in fat?
Yeah, olive oil, yes, a fat, but it's a healthy fat. Specifically, it's monounsaturated fat.
But there's so much conflicting info about fats. What makes olive oil different?
Good question. See, unlike some other fats like saturated and trans fats, which can raise your bad cholesterol, olive oil can actually lower it and can raise your good cholesterol.
Wait, so olive oil is actually good for your heart?
It is. Plus, extra virgin olive oil is packed with antioxidants, especially polyphenols, which have all sorts of health benefits.
Okay, that's interesting. So olive oil, it's a big part of the diet. What about portion sizes? Is there like a specific way to measure everything out?
Actually, that's another thing I love about this approach. It's not about rigid portion control or counting calories. It's more about listening to your body and eating until you're comfortably full.
That sounds so much less stressful than constantly measuring everything.
Right. It's about finding that balance, enjoying the food, and nourishing your body without feeling restricted.
And speaking of enjoying food, we talked about red wine earlier. Is that like a required part of the diet?
Well, it's definitely part of the tradition in those Mediterranean cultures, but it's not a requirement. If you don't drink alcohol, that's totally fine. You can still follow the principles of the diet perfectly.
So it's really about personal preference and what fits your lifestyle.
Exactly. And if you do choose to drink red wine, remember moderation is key.
What about people who are vegetarian or vegan? Can they adapt the Mediterranean diet to fit their needs?
Absolutely. The Mediterranean diet is actually really plant-forward, making it pretty easy to adapt. Just focus on legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and of course, all those amazing fruits and veggies.
There's such a variety of plant-based proteins you can choose from these days.
Exactly. Lentils, chickpeas, beans, tofu, the options are endless.
I love how flexible and adaptable this diet seems to be. Like there's something for everyone.
It's amazing how much there is to this diet, right? I mean, we've talked about the health benefits, the cultural aspects, even the environmental impact. It really does feel like a complete approach to well-being.
It's so true. And I know our listeners are probably eager to start incorporating some of this into their own lives. So let's get practical. Where's a good place to start?
Well, I always tell people, start small. Don't try to change everything overnight. One easy thing you can do is just focus on eating more fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like aiming for at least 5 servings a day and making sure those fruits and veggies are like the main part of your meals.
Exactly. Think about it like you're painting your plate with all those vibrant colors. Leafy greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, berries. There are so many options to choose from.
I love that. Okay, so more fruits and veggies. What about olive oil? I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's pretty important here.
Oh, definitely. Extra virgin olive oil should be your go-to cooking oil. You can use it to roast vegetables, saute, even add a little to your soups.
I know some people find the flavor of olive oil kind of strong. Any tips for those who are just starting out?
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're not used to it, start small. And you can always try different varieties. Some are milder than others.
Okay, so olive oil. What about whole grains? How do those fit in?
Whole grains are super important too. They're full of fiber, so they keep you feeling full, give you energy, and they're really good for your gut health. Choose whole grain bread, pasta, rice, things like that.
And those whole grains, along with legumes, provide so much fiber and protein. It seems like they're a big part of traditional Mediterranean meals.
Yeah. Beans, lentils, chickpeas, all those are great. You can put them in salads, soups, stews. You can even make dips and spreads with them.
It's interesting how the Mediterranean diet emphasizes getting protein from different sources, not just meat, right?
Right. When it comes to meat, fish is really the star. Aim for at least 2 servings a week, especially fatty fish like salmon and tuna. Those are full of omega-3s.
I'm always hearing about how important omega-3s are.
They are for your heart, your brain. And if you don't love fish, you can get omega-3s from things like walnuts and flax seeds too.
This is making me hungry. What are some classic Mediterranean dishes that our listeners could try at home?
Ooh, so many. Well, there's the classic Greek salad. You can't go wrong with that.
That's so fresh and simple.
Right. And if you want something warm and comforting, lentil soup is always a good option. Or how about grilled salmon with roasted vegetables?
I think what I love about the Mediterranean approach is it's not about depriving yourself, it's about enjoying delicious food, cooking, and sharing meals with people.
That's exactly it. It's a lifestyle.
But I know life gets busy. How do you stay motivated and stick with it when things get hectic?
Just remember to keep it simple and focus on what works for you.
Mm.
Start with small changes and be kind to yourself if you slip up.
I also know a lot of people worry about the cost of healthy eating. Any tips for eating Mediterranean on a budget?
Don't worry, it doesn't have to be expensive. There are lots of budget-friendly options, things like canned beans, frozen veggies, whole grains. Those are all super affordable.
That's good to know. Okay, any final thoughts before we wrap up? What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is the Mediterranean diet is not about rules. It's about rediscovering the joy of eating real whole foods and nourishing your body.
So well said. It's about creating a lifestyle that celebrates good food, good company, and overall well-being.
Exactly. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world of food and well-being.